Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Emily if it is your first time here, and in today's video we are going to be doing the next installment of my makeup collection series, and today we're going to be talking about the concealers. Now, I will say before I get into this that I have been going through a concealer transformation recently. I have not been loving super full coverage matte concealers, and I got rid of most of the concealers in my collection that are like that, and I think I still have like two in here, and so I'm gonna tell you what those are. One is almost gone, so I think I just want to use it up, and then the other one I might end up decluttering after this video. And I just realized I just ate and my lip color is gone. I'm also going to do like color comparisons probably on the back of my hand of all these concealers, just because I personally think it's really interesting to see color comparisons between like an entire collection of base products like foundations, concealers, powders. I just think it's interesting and I personally want to see it. So without further ado, let's jump into the concealers. I'm not going to be going in any particular order with these. I'm literally just going to grab them in the order that they're in, which is a random order. So the first one that we're going to talk about is the Revlon Photoready Candid Antioxidant Concealer. This concealer I've probably had for a little bit over a year now, and this is one of my favorite color concealers in my collection. It's this light kind of neutral peachy shade, and recently I've been loving having a concealer that is a little bit lighter and a little bit more peachy, and this one is just that. It's actually pretty close to being gone. Like, I can tell there's not that much left in here. I just love the way that this looks on my under eyes. It covers up when I need it to without looking too heavy and intense, and it isn't super matte, and I just really enjoy it. Now, my all-time favorite concealer of all time is the e.l.f. HD Lifting Concealer. I actually have two of these in my collection, and these are basically impossible to find. Like, I can't find them online, I can't find them in store anywhere, so I'm gonna cherish these and love every second of using them, but when it's gone, it's gone. As you can see, this one is a lot darker than the first one, and it is a lot more neutral, less peachy than the first one as well. But I just love this concealer. It has the most unique thin gel-like formula, but it's so hydrating and it's pretty full coverage as well, and it's just such a good concealer. And I'm actually really sad because the one that's in my Shop My Stash is almost gone. I can tell it's almost gone, which means that when that one's gone, I'll only have this one left. And I may have found a dupe in it, but it's from a brand that I don't support really, so I don't even really know why I bought the concealer. I do know why I bought it. It was on sale and I was tempted, so I bought it, even though I typically don't support this brand, but it may be a dupe for this, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. Next, we have the RMS Beauty Uncoverup Concealer. This is a brand that I don't super support. I don't really know how I feel about RMS. They've had a few little scandals in the past, and I bought this before I knew about them, so I just don't know. This is a pot concealer, and typically when you have a pot concealer, they are very thick and creamy, but this one is not. This one's super thin and pretty oily, like you can barely see it here, and this is one of my lightest concealers, but it looks so beautiful on the under eyes. It is so dewy and moisturizing and doesn't leave my under eyes feeling dry and crepey at all. Putting this on top of blemishes does not work for me, just because I find that it is too dewy, that it honestly kind of draws attention to it. But I love this on the under eyes. I'm just gonna go ahead and do the other little pot concealer that I have, which isn't like, I don't think technically it is a concealer, it's just like an overall base product. This is the Kevyn Aquan Sensual Skin Enhancer. I have the shade SX05. This is an intensely full coverage concealer. So far, all the colors of these concealers are so different. This one is unbelievably full coverage. This is really good to use as a blemish concealer, but I also love using it on my under eyes. When I use it on my under eyes, I do use it a little bit more sparingly, but the thing about this concealer is that even though it is so thick and full coverage, it doesn't feel dry. It is actually like super luminous and nice and moisturizing, and it's a really great concealer. I think that if I were to ever repurchase this, I would try to pick a shade that's a little bit more peachy and not so golden, because that shade's pretty golden. You can see it compared to the RMS. Next, we have my Maybelline Fit Me Concealer. I will say, the effect that this concealer gives compared to the effect that my e.l.f. gives is very similar, but the consistency of the two are not. The e.l.f. concealer is much more gel-like, and this one doesn't have so much of that gel kind of bouncy formula, but it is a very lightweight, dewy, moisturizing concealer. It sits beautifully on my under eyes, and this is such a go-to. I will probably always have one of these in my collection, and I think I actually have a darker shade of this as well. And you know that when I have two shades of something, it's a freaking favorite, man. Next we have one of the concealers that's a little bit more matte and drying and fuller coverage that I'm considering getting rid of, but it's so close to being empty that I kind of just want to use it up. And this is the Maybelline Master Conceal Camouflaging Concealer. It is right here, and it is literally so close to being done. I've had this for at least 4 years, 3.5 to 4 years, and it needs to be out of my collection. This is probably not safe to put anywhere near my eyes, but I have a really hard time like getting rid of stuff just because it's old. I'm like, no, I want to use it up. So this concealer is really dry. You can see it has, I don't know if you'll be able to see, it has already dried down on my hand and looks pretty crusty around these edges right here, and it's just not something that I enjoy on my under eye. And while I do enjoy a full coverage concealer sometimes, I only like it if it is also really moisturizing and dewy and doesn't look like it dries my under eyes out, and this one just does. So I want to finish it up, but also at the same time, like, it's taking a really long time to finish it up, so I may just end up getting rid of it at some point. And by getting rid of it, I mean throwing it away because it's so old. This concealer I really enjoy, but the issue with this one is that the color is super off, and it's from a brand that isn't cruelty free, and I didn't know that this brand was not cruelty free when I bought this concealer. This is the Neutrogena Radiant Cream Concealer, not to be confused with the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. I really enjoy this concealer. It is exactly what it says it is. It is a radiant creamy concealer. It's not a gel-like concealer like my beloved e.l.f. HD lifting concealer, but it is very creamy and it is very moisturizing. These colors are also different. I love it. Wow, that is so funny. This video should just be called Emily Does Not Know How to Shade Match. Oh, that's so funny. The issue with this is that, like, I love the formula and it looks really nice on my under eyes, but to me, like, just because a product is good isn't worth it not being cruelty free. Does that make any sense? And that's how I feel about this one. Like, it's a really great concealer and I love the way that it looks on my under eyes. It just fits my, I want it to look moisturizing. I want like medium coverage, but I also am also sad about this because the color is just so off for me. It is like one shade too dark, too yellow, and it just looks funky when I put it on, you know. The Rare Beauty Concealer, and I did not think that I was going to pick this up when it came out, but then I just went on a random splurge one day and I was like, I want the concealer and the foundation, so then I bought the concealer and the foundation. And this shade is actually a really great shade match for me. It's a little bit more neutral and not so peachy, but it is a really great shade match. This one is, I would say, more full coverage, and sometimes if I don't prep my under eyes and just my base in general enough, it can look a little bit dry and crepey, but it's just one of those things where, like, I love the effect when I do prep well enough, so I just have to make sure that I prep and then it looks amazing on my under eyes and it feels amazing as well. This next concealer also is absolutely nowhere near being a good shade match for me. I feel like I don't even need to say that at that point. Like, we get it. Like, your concealers don't match your skin tone, Emily. The way that some of these are oxidizing is like super, super shocking to me. This concealer right here, this is the e.l.f. Hydrating Camo Concealer. I have not tried the normal Camo Concealer and probably will not ever, just because I really love the way that this sits on my under eyes. It isn't like too overly dewy. What's interesting about this concealer is that I would almost describe it as sticky. It is a really thick and pretty sticky concealer. Like, it's almost up there with the Kevyn Aquan Sensual Skin Enhancer, but this is a little bit more whipped than this. This is like pretty sticky, but on the under eyes it looks so hydrating and nice and beautiful and smooth, and I really enjoy it. All right, this one is the potential dupe for my favorite concealer, the e.l.f. HD Lifting Concealer. And the color on this, again, wrong, a little bit too peachy this time. It's, well, nah, I like the level of peachiness. I just think it's like one shade too dark. And that is the Kylie Cosmetics Skin Concealer. And this is in the shade Sand, and it is this one right here. And I don't really support Kylie Cosmetics. I have to use this a bit more just to see if it truly is a dupe for my e.l.f. HD Lifting Concealer. So far, the effect that it gives on the under eye is the closest out of all my concealers. It's even closer than my Maybelline Fit Me Concealer, but I just have weird feelings about the brand, and this color is not good for me at all. What's interesting about this color though is as I blend it out, it kind of ends up being an okay color for me. So it's just, I don't know, I have weird feelings on that concealer, but I do want to end up seeing if it is a good dupe for my e.l.f. HD Lifting Concealer. Oh my gosh. And the last concealer that I have is the Maybelline Instant Age Rewind Concealer, and I actually just did 2 swatches of it, and I'm gonna tell you why. So mine, I tore the puff off of, which I now regret doing because it has just made the whole application process terrible, and so it'll end up like bubbling out a little bit. This will dry, I'll forget that I need to like scrape that part off, so like one under eye will end up having like this dry, like oxidized concealer clump on it, and then the other one will look okay. So I swatched the oxidized concealer clump right here, and then I got the new concealer out right here, and as you can see, they are like completely different colors, completely different textures. This one has a little bit of a glow to it, this one is super matte, and I'm wearing this concealer today, and this under eye had that dry part and this under eye had the normal part, and I can just tell when I'm like feeling my under eyes, looking at my under eyes, which one is which. I just really have weird feelings on this one as well. Maybelline is in a weird gray area of being cruelty free, and while this is my second bottle of this, the first bottle that I had, I actually think I still have this first bottle right here. As you can see, I have almost completely used it up, and it's just in a darker shade, which I guess I'll give it a swatch. It's that one right there, and I like the effect that it gives on the under eye, but again, I don't know if the effect that it gives is convincing enough for me to like kind of desert my morals and go ahead and repurchase it, if that makes sense. So I like it. It's not too drying, it's pretty, it's not creepy, but it's not anything amazing, and I think at this point I'm just so frustrated with the application process and with myself for tearing that little puff off that I don't know. Also, I would just like to say, I just went to wipe them off, and some of them are still on here, but the Revlon and the e.l.f. HD Lifting Concealer are still on my hand and won't really come off, and maybe that's just because they were like kind of different shades, but interesting observation. So that is my entire concealer collection. I'm really happy with the size of my current concealer collection, and I don't really see myself purchasing anytime soon, unless I do end up getting rid of this one, which, yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and get rid of that. I'm just gonna toss her out. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you will give it a thumbs up and maybe even subscribe before you go, and hopefully I will see you in my next video. Bye!